He disagrees.
Sorry?
He disagrees.
I disagree.
Or you believe there were eyewitnesses? Matthew, Mark, Luke and John.
Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Matthew was a follower. Mark was a secretary of Peter.
Was Mark an eyewitness?
Mark wasn't, but Matthew
Mark wasn't an eyewitness.
Luke went round and interviewed
Was Luke an eyewitness?
And John was an eyewitness.
Was Luke an eyewitness?
He interviewed eyewitnesses. He wasn't an eyewitness himself.
Was Luke an eyewitness?
He wasn't an eyewitness
All
himself.
right. So I was correct. You disagree. Okay.
I
Luke.
disagree.
Okay.
He had eyewitness Matthew.
Okay. I'll explain to you.
Matthew and John are eyewitnesses.
I'll explain it to you.
Luke and Mark is a secretary of Peter.
I'll explain to you.
Eyewitness.
I'll explain to you.
And Luke went round and
I'll explain to you why I was right about you saying they were wrong. They believe Matthew, Mark, Luke and John were all eyewitnesses. And I said, you'll disagree with them. And you disagree with them again.
Right, so they give eyewitness accounts, but they wasn't, Mark and Luke were not eyewitnesses themselves. They give eyewitness accounts from eyewitnesses, but they wasn't eyewitnesses themselves. Matthew and John were eyewitnesses.
So Mark wasn't an eyewitness. Yeah? This is definitive. Mark wasn't an eyewitness. Luke wasn't an eyewitness. Okay. Right. Now I'm going to argue Matthew wasn't.
Hang on, let me take that back a minute because Mark was Peter's secretary.
Why do you believe that?
So he could have been, because Peter tells us, my beloved son Mark to you.
Where does Peter say?
In his letter, he tells us.
Where does Peter say Mark is writing on my behalf?
Mark is Peter's secretary.
No.
We know from church history.
Where does it say that? You just quoted Peter saying it.
Peter says, I'm sending to you
Where
Mark,
does Peter say this?
At the end of his letter.
No. Where does Peter say Mark's gospel is what I'm saying? Where's Peter say this?
But he doesn't say that.
He doesn't say that.
Church fathers.
Right. So I'll go back to my original question. Why do you believe Mark was a scribe of Peter?
Because we know that Mark was with Peter. We know that Mark wrote down lots of stuff because the other church fathers tell us that Mark wrote down Peter's account.
What did Peter say about Mark's gospel? Did he encourage the reading of it?
But the Gospels weren't compiled in their current format while the apostles were still around. Only John's was written by him.
Say that again.
So the Gospels, the canon of the Bible wasn't finished when the apostles were around.
So you're saying when Peter was around, there was no Gospel of Mark?
There wasn't a book that you could give to Peter and say. So there were writings that Mark done.
So what's Clement of Alexandria talking about when he refers to the Gospel of Mark and Peter?
The Gospel that Mark had written.
Where Clement of Alexandria says Peter neither encouraged or discouraged the reading of the Gospel of Mark. Why would Clement of Alexandria say that?
Where does it say that? I'm not familiar with it. You might say that, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Let me. See, here's the thing. I don't do people's homework for them. I like them to reveal this themselves.
I like to do homework.
Right. So my question to you is this: would you agree with me if Clement of Alexandria is saying that? That means Mark's gospel was around at the time of Peter.
It was aroundish. So Mark was writing things.
Was Peter aware of the Gospel of Mark? Is my question.
So he would have been aware that his secretary was writing things for him. Whether he recognised it as that gospel.
Right.
We see the gospel.
So he didn't rubber stamp it then.
Well, he would have known what Mark was writing about him. So he would have been telling Mark all the things that happened.
Why is there no mention of a resurrection in the Gospel of Mark?
There is in the final chapters.
You don't believe them?
I do believe them.
Or you believe
Yes. Just because some of the early ones they didn't have it doesn't mean it exists. Why would all the other Gospels have it?
So you follow the minority opinion that the ending of Mark, drinking poison and all that, was true?
So I believe that's all true. Yeah. Because all the other Gospels agree.
So all the biblical scholars that say this is a forgery, you disagree with?
All of them. Who says it's a forgery?
All of them.
Forgery?
End in a mark? There is no end in a mark.
Who says it's a forgery?
Which Bible do you read? Which Bible you got in your pocket?
I've got the English Standard, King James.
Read Mark 16. Oh, you got them on your phone?
Hang on, what's the security? It's that thing that was going off, isn't it? But Mark is there in all the other Gospels as well.
No. According to the majority of biblical scholars...
I don't care what biblical scholars say.
I know you don't. You don't care... Okay, you don't care about people who spent their life studying the text. Fine.
Most biblical scholars you've got
nowadays
are not Christians. They're coming from
what do you base your research on?
On the historical church fathers and what they said.
And the biblical scholars don't do that?
The biblical scholars have got their own...
so they don't use the church father citations and such?
To a certain extent they do, yeah.
Do they or don't?
Not everything. No, they
Right.
believe.
So let me just understand one thing.
They are more important than the church fathers. They think they have better.
But you think you're more important than?
No, I think the church
biblical
fathers.
scholars.
No, I think the church fathers are more important.
But we just said the church fathers. Sorry, we just said the biblical scholars do use the church fathers.
They do use them, but they think they're more important. They think their methodology now can overrule what people knew in the first century. They think that what they've done in the 20th century through critical
Why is that?
analysis,
Why do you think that
because
is?
Because they've gone through a methodology.
Well,
of
not
their own.
necessarily, because they've realised that you don't have the originals of what you have. Yeah, they've realised as you discover more
They don't have the originals.
you don't have the originals.
The early church fathers had the originals.
No, but the point we have is this: we can see after the discovery of new manuscripts that it contradicts the previous book. So, for example, the KJV needed a revision after the discovery of the Codex Sinaiticus, because they highlighted all the additions and such that was found that were not found in the oldest manuscripts. Now, you yourself as a non-biblical scholar can turn around and say to me, well, I don't care. But biblical scholars, when they look at the antiquity and they look at the oldest manuscripts, and they know that the manuscripts are copied from manuscripts, if you have a manuscript containing something that's not found in the original, that's a forgery.
How do you know it's not in the original? Where is the original?
In the oldest.
No, you said original. So now
By
you said
original,
oldest, right,
okay, let me
so
rephrase
what they
that. By the oldest manuscript.
Yeah, so what they do, the way the biblical scholars work, they have two methods. They have the majority text, which is where they look at all the manuscripts and say, well, the majority say this, and they go with the majority text. Then you have the critical text, which looks at all the manuscripts and say, well, yeah, the majority say this, but these ones are older and these ones have got more weight because they're more tested.
You can have 20,000.
So there's different ways.
You can have 20,000 manuscripts with 1 John 5:7 in them, and everyone thinks, oh, this is reliable because all these manuscripts say it. But if the manuscripts prior to it that it's copied from didn't have 1 John 5:7 in it, then it doesn't matter about them 20,000.
But if others have attested to it through their letters and writings,
who's attested to it?
that's what we said to church fathers. That you just said that the scholars,
Okay,
the
you
scholars
keep
go
talking.
to the church
all
fathers.
right. So you keep talking.
It's not simple just picking up a script and saying, right, copy that script. Those scripts were letters.
Why do you believe what the church
accounts.
fathers say?
Because it all goes together.
No, why do you believe what they say?
Because it all comes together as coherent. So when you take the whole lot together, it's coherent. When you take individual bits, you say, well, yeah, that bit might have come from somewhere else. But it's only when it's corroborated.
Why do you believe what church fathers say are reliable? For example, when Papias in the 2nd century says that Matthew is the author of Matthew, why do you believe what Papias says? I'm just trying to understand. I'm not tearing things down here. I'm trying to understand.
Because the church fathers walked with the apostles. Okay? So they are straight away, they are disciples of the apostles. Sorry? The early church fathers, Polycarp and...
Who was Polycarp a disciple of?
Polycarp was John, wasn't it?
But there's a funny thing about Polycarp. He never quotes from the Gospel of John.
No, because John was encouraged to write his gospel at a late age by his followers because he became Bishop of Ephesus.
So why doesn't a disciple of somebody quote them?
He would have quoted John because he would have been learning from John. So you might not be able to find you may not be able to find an exact quote that you can copy.
No.
But Polycarp and all the others would have been quoted directly from the Bible.
You seem a nice and reasonable guy. More homework for you. Okay.
I love doing homework.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the homework for you now. Did Polycarp ever quote from the Gospel of John? And if he didn't,
what's my criteria to prove that or disprove it? Because he would have said many things.
You would look at the things Polycarp says, and he would reference it from John. Yes.
So you just must find a reference from Polycarp that says John.
Okay. What's my claim? According to biblical scholars, not me, not Muslims, from Christian biblical scholars.
Not all Christian. Lots of atheists, lots of strange Christians.
Polycarp never quotes from the Gospel of John.
Right.
And this is why they question whether he was a disciple of John or not.
So what they're saying is, are they saying they cannot find a quote from the Gospel of John?
They're saying,
everything
why
that
should we? What they're saying is, why should we believe this man is a disciple of John when he never quotes from his Gospel?
All the other church fathers also agree that Polycarp came from John, because there's a history. It's like your chains of narration.
It isn't.
The early church fathers had people who spoke to people who knew they was reliable, because it was all part of the early church.
I'll tell you how corrupt your church fathers are. Would you say Eusebius is a church father?
He comes a bit later. He writes the church history. Yeah.
Right. So you have Origen, yeah?
Origen was he had his problems. They all had their problems. The early church.
Right, so when Origen read the letters of Josephus, yeah, about Jesus, who he was, Origen complained as to why he's not saying he's the Messiah and he's more than a man. Why is he not saying he was resurrected? Why is Flavius Josephus, the historian, not saying these things? When Eusebius inherits the library of Origen, all of a sudden now Josephus's letter is saying them. Yeah, the things that Origen complained that the letter wasn't saying, when Eusebius got his hands on it, all of a sudden now it's saying it. It's saying he's more than a man.
So Josephus wrote